Hello everyone, welcome back to Yazi Family Vlogs. As you guys can see, this video is a little different. Goes into more of the Halloween theme. I been wanting to share a few 1, 2, 3 stories with you guys. I kind of shared it on probably the past few lives that we did, and I shared it with Coach when he was on our live also. So this red light is just to go for the effect because it's Halloween, so Halloween season, and so I thought I kind of put this in the mood and tell you guys my stories. I have a few stories to tell, so I'm going to tell you guys a couple of them. And these are my experiences with skinwalkers. And as a lot of you guys know, Navajos are not allowed to talk about skinwalkers. Navajos are not allowed to talk about them at night, whistle at night, things like that. But I'm not traditional. I'm not into tradition. So I don't follow any of those beliefs. As you guys can see, I got tattoos all over. Again, another one of the traditional beliefs. You're not supposed to have tattoos on your body. And I'm not traditional, so I'm going to share my story with my experiences. And if you guys don't want to listen to it because of your traditional beliefs, I understand. But I thought I'd bring this up since it's coming up towards Halloween. Okay, so I'm back, so I'm going to share my stories. And this first story that I'm going to tell you was back in Salina Springs, Arizona. This was me and Josiah. Josiah was just a little kid, maybe about, I say between 4 and 6 years, maybe. He was just a little boy, and we went back to Salina for a revival that my mom was having. So imagine Salina, dark, everything. And the revival was right on her land. Big, huge white tent. Enough chairs, probably like 30, 40 chairs inside the tent. And me and Josiah, we drove up there that evening. And we went up there for the revival. And where my mom stays, there's a big old mesa that's just right there. So revival was over late at night, between 10, 11 p.m. Everybody had gone home. We fed them, they left. And it was just the tent, us guys that were putting stuff away outside. So not too far from the tent, there's only one street light that's over there, and it's kind of like right in the middle between the tent and her place. So every time you look at that street light, you see bats all the time. And then there's like a huge trees just right there on a little dirt mound that goes up like a little hill right where the revival was. And then from there, those trees are so huge, the leaves are so, full of leaves. So it's pitch black just going that way up towards those mesas. It's just pitch black, and the mesa is not too far from there too. So after everyone had put stuff away, everyone was going inside getting ready to go to bed. And then we had decided that we're going to camp outside, me and Josiah. So we put up a small small tent, enough for like 2 3 people, and they're like a dome type tent. So we parked our car right up there on that little hill, the little mound, and then our tent was in front of the car, not too close to the car, but just right in front of it. And we put up the tent. It was dark. There was really no light. When you look down, you can see light going that way. And I was the type of person that likes to sleep where there's not much light. So there wasn't much light coming into our tent. And then we pitched up our tent. We put our blankets in there, and I left the top opening of the tent. I left it open so you can see the leaves from the tree. You can see the leaves on top, and everybody went inside, and then they went inside the house. It was just me and Jojo. So we packed up our blankets, we grabbed our water, and he went in the tent, I went in, I zipped it up, and he laid down. I laid down right next to him, and we covered each other. I covered him with a blanket. I covered myself. We had our own blankets. And I was just laying there. I was tired. Josiah was out. He was already sleeping. And then I was just looking up towards the tent, and you can see the leaves blowing. Hold on. Okay. So as I was laying there in the tent looking up, you can see the leaves. And you could hear something towards the mesa, like you could hear something, and I noticed it was an owl. Just listening to the sound, I could hear an owl. So I was laying there and I was listening to the owl hoot way up on top of that mesa. And I didn't really know anything about tradition. Like I said, I didn't really grow up into tradition. So I was just like listening to it. And then probably a matter of minutes, I fell asleep. And I don't know how much time had went by when we were sleeping. And all of a sudden, it's like a few hours went by, and I woke up. And you could just hear the wind outside the tent and the leaves blowing. I looked up, and it was kind of getting cold. And that didn't wake me up, though. What woke me up was like a dead animal or something stunk. I mean, something stunk like when you go right next to roadkill and you can hear it, you can smell it. And that's what I smelled, and I was like laying there in my tent, and I was like looking around. And then I was thinking, did Josiah use the bathroom on himself? Because he was just a little kid then. So I kind of got up, I rolled around, and I checked his pants, his underwear, and he was okay. So I was just laying there, and I was like, Josiah was out, he was sleeping. And then I was just laying there, and I was sleeping, and well, not sleeping, but I was laying there wide awake, just like looking at the leaves on top. And I was trying to listen for something. I was just trying to like listen, be real still. I wasn't moving around. And you can just hear the leaves just on the tree just blowing. And that smell was just like you hit a dog and they threw it right next to that tent. And I was just like, man, something smells. And I was just laying there, and I was like, what is going on? And then I was trying to look, and I was trying to look up, and I was trying not to move around, but I was just trying to look up on top to see if I see a shadow or anything like around my tent, but I couldn't. Only on my side where I was laying, you can see, I guess, the shadow of the leaves from the tree just blowing from that street light that's on my left side. So I was just laying there, and I was trying to look like this, and I was like trying to go real slow. We had a zipper right behind where my head was. We had a zipper where, it's like a window. So I was like, maybe I should roll it up, roll the zipper up and see if I can look out. So I grabbed the zipper and I was trying to zip real slow, but you can just, it was like making noise. So I stopped and I just laid there, and you could just smell it. I mean, you could just smell it. But I didn't think of anything after that. I didn't think of what it could be. I thought it was just a skunk or something that was walking around. And then eventually I went back to sleep. And I got up that morning. You can hear the birds outside. So I got up, unzipped the tent, and then went to the bathroom. Josiah got up and he ran inside. He was already getting ready in my mom's place. And I was like looking around the tent. I walked around outside and I could just see just like chickens were walking around the tent. So, birds or whatever they were. That's the only tracks I could find. And my mom didn't have no dogs at that time, but there was like a dog footprints, looking around. So I said, "Do you guys have a dog?" And they're like, "No." So yeah, there was just like all around the tent and around the car. And I didn't know anything about that. So when I next day talked about what happened, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the owl is warning you. The owl warns you when bad things are going to happen. That's what the owl does." So I guess that's what the owl was doing when we were going to bed. I guess it was telling us something, or it was being the eyes of a skinwalker or something. So that's when I found out that the skinwalker, smells like that. But I didn't get to see it though that night. I just continue on throughout my day. I forgot about it, and that was it. That was one of my first experiences with Skinwalker. So that was way early when Josiah was young. And then my second story with this Skinwalker was when I was working with corrections. I was working with corrections, and it was on a Friday night, Saturday. I was working the morning shift, so I guess some things had happened Friday night here in Gallup on the west side of town, and I went to work that morning. My shift started at 7 a.m. that morning, so got to work that morning, and then the night sergeant over there was kind of telling us what happened. She was, "Oh, you're not going to believe what came in last night." And, we were so scared. We were terrified. Gallup PD brought him in. And she was like, "He's in booking right now. He's in booking and we haven't touched him. He's in there. He's like in a trance. He's just sitting there. He won't move. And he's got like black stuff all over him." And then she goes, "I think we have a Skinwalker in booking." And there was my sergeant, and there was probably like 3 or 4 officers that were sitting in the briefing room, and we're still waiting for more people to show up from our shift. And I was sitting there and I got excited. I was like, "Really?" And then at the same time, I kind of had like chills, just from her talking about it. So everybody has showed up, and then we did our briefing, and she was telling us about it. He's still in booking. He's still in his clothes, and he's dirty. He smells. Nobody wants to go down there. Nobody changed him out yet. So I was sitting there and I was like, honestly, I had chills because she said it was a Skinwalker, and I never seen a Skinwalker face to face. So everybody in the room, they were, you can tell they were a little bit terrified, and they're just like looking at each other. We're just looking around. We're like, there's a Skinwalker in the booking just right there. And we had a lieutenant. He was a Belagana. He was white, so he's a huge guy, he was in there, and he was like, "Really, a skinwalker?" He was like standing there shaking his head. "Really? Yeah, yeah, excuse my language." And he was like, "Yeah, F it, I'll go in there. I'll go change him out. I'm not into tradition. I don't believe in this hocus pocus stuff." And he was like, "I'm not scared of nobody. I'm not scared of no skinwalker." And he was like just getting fired up just listening to it. And the sergeant was like, "Yeah, he's down there. We haven't changed him out." So he's like, "Okay." He was, I'll do it." And then he goes, "Any of you guys want to go with me?" And then he goes, "Any guys want to change him out?" So as curious as I am, and me not being into tradition, I said I'll go with him. So he goes, "All right." So we got up, and the other ones that didn't want to do it, they stayed behind in the briefing room. And then the night sergeant got a hold of control, the person in control that takes care of all the doors and everything. Got hold of all the officers, warning them that LT and Officer Yazzie is going to take them up to booking, up to segregation for a change out. So if you guys don't want to be around it, stay in your offices, stay in your office upstairs booking, stay in the property room. So we walked down there, walked into the hallway, we walked out, they opened the door for us, we kept that door open, and then medical closed their door. And then right at the entrance of the Sally Port, there's another door on the left side. It's like a kind of like a storage where we have all our jumpsuits and everything. So we opened it, we grabbed the 2 eggs, we grabbed some slippers, and we took it with us. And then you go down another hallway into booking. There's probably like one bench right there, and then there's like probably 2 doors, 1, 2 on your left side, small windows at that door. So as you're making your way down to booking, there's 2 doors, 3 doors actually, maybe 3 doors in an office. And we're going to the first door, to where we keep people that are too intoxicated suicide watch. If they're too combative, we keep them in these single cell doors. So we went up to that door. My lieutenant peeked in through the window, and he was just standing there shaking his head. He was, "All right, okay." And then I looked in there, and I seen him sitting there. And when you look at those cells, there's a bathroom, there's a toilet that's right in. I'm looking into the door. Then on this side of the room, there's a toilet that's just right there. And then you look straight where he was sitting. It's just like a flat board, maybe 3 inches off the ground. It's just a flat board, like a bed. It's just nothing but just a board. And he was just sitting there, crouched like this. And then he was just holding something, just like a necklace or a pouch or something. He's just holding it. And he had long hair, and his hair was just like coming down on the side. And he was just sitting there. And he's just sitting there like this. And I looked in, so I said, "Okay." And so he opened the door, and he stunk, and he smelled. And the sergeant was telling us he's like rubbing ashes or whatever on the wall, and he's throwing powder to people that look in at the door. He puts powder, that black powder on his fingers, and he blows it at the door. So that's why the officers were scared. And they just put the piece of paper that was right there, so they wouldn't have to look in there, or he wouldn't have to get up and look at them. So we walked in, and then the lieutenant called him up by his name. So my lieutenant called him by his name, telling him to get up, and he was sitting there. He didn't want to get up. He was just sitting there. He had his head down, just, like this, just sitting there. We gave him like 3 verbal commands to get up, and he didn't want to get up. So my lieutenant walked up there, and this guy's a big guy. My lieutenant's a huge guy, and the guy was, supposedly the Skinwalker. He was probably like 5'8", 5'9", maybe medium build, about like 220, 230 pounds. So my lieutenant grabbed him by his arm, lifted him up, and the guy got up and he was still holding on to his necklace. And then he shoved him into the wall. And then I grabbed his arm. Whatever pouch he was holding, I grabbed his arm, put it around his back. So I grabbed his arm, his right arm. My lieutenant was on his left side. I grabbed his arm, I put it behind his back. My lieutenant did the same thing, grabbed him, and then he was against the wall. And my lieutenant, he cuffed him up. So he cuffed him up, and then we put him in what we call a Mach 3 hole. So we put our arms in between his cuffs and his arm, and we were holding his shoulder. So I was on his right side with my left arm holding him, and then my lieutenant was on his left side with his right arm. So since we both had the leverage, we held him down. So when we escorted him, he was like head first down, and his arms were higher, way up there. So we had more control as we were walking with him. So we walked him out of his cell, called into control that we're escorting him, and then she started opening all the doors for us. And then the first door opened, and then we took our right into the hallway, which is a little bit longer. And then we took our left to the elevator. She opened the elevator for us, so the elevator opens up when control opens it. So we went into the elevator, we turned them around, the door closed, we went up to the first floor. And the other officers, they stayed in the office, they didn't want to do anything. So the officer that was in charge of segregation had already opened the segregation main door, and they unlocked the padlock, which is a shower. As soon as we went into segregation, the padlock was open, and then we put that guy into the segregation shower. It's just nothing but bars, and we yanked him back. We took off his handcuffs, and this guy wasn't happy. I mean, he was already upset that we were like literally just like dragging him up to the second floor. His feet was dragging. We didn't give him him to catch his balance and walk, because we're power walking with him, and we took him up there. So we got him into that shower, we closed it, we locked it, we told him to undress. He didn't want to, and he started yelling at us, he started cussing at us. He rolled his eyes back. His eyes were just white then. He rolled his eyes back, and he put his hair back, and he was just like yelling at us, and he was just looking at us like this, just yelling at us. And he was saying stuff. He wasn't talking Navajo, but he was saying like a certain language. And he was just like yelling at us, and he was like cussing us out. And then my lieutenant told me to turn on the water, because you control the water from the outside in the hallway. He just opened up a panel, turn on the water, which is a knob. There's there's not hot and cold, but you turn it far enough to your right, it turns hot. If you don't, then it stays cold. So he told me to leave it on cold water. I went out there, I turned it on, I closed the panel, and the shower was just like right there. So that shower was hitting him. And this was cold water. I mean, the water in segregation is like ice cold. And it was just like running all over him, and he was just standing there like it didn't faze him at all. It didn't faze him. His body didn't have like a shock to it or anything. It's just like he was standing outside in the rain. That's how he felt like it looked like in the shower. That water was so cold. But he's just standing there, his hair just got all wet, it's just running down his face. and his eyes were still rolled back, just, yelling at us. And then he just stood there quietly, and we told him we're not letting you out until you change, not until you shower. So he stood there quietly. He didn't do anything, and then my lieutenant goes, "Let's go." So we close the main door to segregation. Boom, big old heavy door that just closes. We went into the housing one office, which was just right there, where there was like 2 officers that were standing there. And they were standing there. They're just like, "What happened? What happened?" And my lieutenant's just standing there all smiling. "Oh yeah, he's taking a cold shower right now. We're gonna let him cool off," and making a joke out of it. And so we waited about 5 minutes, and we got the segregation key. We opened the door, and he was standing there. And I don't know, but he had removed all his clothes, and he was just standing in the water. And I turned off the water. My lieutenant left a towel in between the bars. He put his oranges right there. He threw his slippers under the door, and he told him, "Get ready." So we closed the door again, waited 5 more minutes. And finally, this guy had put on his jumpsuit, put on his slippers, and commanded him to turn around so we can cuff him up. So he turned around, but when he put on his oranges, he didn't use the towel. He just put the oranges on, so his oranges were like soaking wet. His hair, the top of his oranges were wet. And when he commanded him to turn around to cuff up, he turned around, put his hands behind his back, and then I went to cuff him up. I grabbed his wrist. I put one set of cuff on him, and this guy's wrists, his hands were so cold. It's like just cold, and he had no reaction to it. It's like he wasn't shivering, he wasn't moving, he was just standing there, just still. Then we cuffed him up. I was holding his cuffs, and Lieutenant undid the padlock, grabbed his arm, pulled him out from the side. I closed it, and then I opened door cell 1, which is what we called it, cell 1 segregation. I opened it, opened up the tray. There's a little tray on the door. You open up where you hand the inmates their food trays. So I opened that up, and then we opened the door. We had his mattress in there already. We put a blanket in there already. Tissue, whatever commissary he needed, as far as hygiene, we put him in there. And then we put him right in front of the door. Since I had that tray open, I grabbed his cuffs from that door. We closed it. I was holding on to his cuffs. And then we went to go unlock his cuffs. Lieutenant unlocked the left side, and then he was to unlock the right side, and his hands just slipped out of those cuffs, and he just walked away. He just walked straight to his first bunk, just laid down. Didn't say a word to us, didn't say nothing to us. We closed his food tray, and we walked out. Closed the main door to segregation, and that was it. That was the experience I had with that Skinwalker at a facility, at a jail, and his clothes that were sitting there. We just had to put his stuff in a plastic bag, and then we just had one of the trustees take it down to the laundry room so they can wash his clothes down there. And come to find out, that guy, that Skinwalker, was booked in for, I guess, armed robbery. He had robbery and some threatening charges, and I guess Gallup PD had caught him on the west side of Gallup, right near the train tracks where the ditch was, behind one of the convenience stores. So he was there for those charges, and they were felony charges, so he was there for quite a while. And then I remember throughout the day, because I had just started my shift, that people were scared. Yeah, the officers were scared to walk through there, give him his tray, do anything with that tray. And then word went around to the other inmates in segregation that it was a skinwalker. So they were also scared too, but, they try not to show it. And I think since that was our weekend, we worked throughout the weekend. Monday, Tuesday, I was off. I went back on Wednesday, and he was still in segregation. And this guy, because I was working seg that day, so, I had to keep an eye on him. So when I went in there to give him cleaning supplies and his trays, his food and everything like that, and he seemed like he was just a normal person after that. Just like, what happened, What happened? You remember what happened that night? Do you remember what happened that morning? Were you the one that brought me up here? I was like, yeah, I was the one that helped bring you up here. He's like, man, what happened? What did I do? And, did I do anything to you guys? And I was like, no. And he was like, yeah. He goes, I don't know what happened to me. He goes, it felt like I was blacked out, or he goes, I don't remember anything. And he didn't mention of him being a skinwalker or anything like that. He was just like, I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything that happened. I don't remember those black pouches, the ashes, nothing like that. And I said, do you remember the water when we threw in, ice cold water? He was like, no, I don't remember any of that. He goes, I just woke up. He goes, I was cold, but he goes, I don't remember anything. So that was like... And then eventually I was like, these guys are calling me a skinwalker. And he's like, no, I'm not a skinwalker. No, I'm not a skinwalker. But he was really heavy into his traditional beliefs, though. And then he was getting sent to prison for his charges, but he ended up staying there for about 4 years total, I believe. And then I remember he was there the whole time I was there. And then I was there the day he got released from jail. And then he was getting his stuff ready. And, he cleaned up a lot while he was in jail. He was a much different person. And I remember when we're in booking, I took him down to booking. I went to go escort him out for his release. And he started laughing. He goes, yeah, I do witchcraft. He goes, I practice in witchcraft. But he goes, don't worry though. He goes, you're the only person I'm gonna tell is I did witchcraft. And I didn't want to show no fear or anything. I was, oh, okay. And then I left my job and I started working at a different place. And eventually this guy came into where I was working with his girlfriend and her kids, and those were not his kids. And he came in and he was like, yeah, hey, what's up, Yazzie? Hey, how's it going? Hey, guess what? I'm working. This is my family, and I got married. These are her kids, but they're my kids too. She's going to get, she's pregnant, so... He goes, we're going to start a family. He goes, I'm working over here at Love's Truck Stop. And he goes, I'm a tire repair. I remember he was telling me that. And he goes, yeah, he was telling his wife, yeah, this guy took care of me in jail. And, he always had my back. And, it's weird seeing someone telling you that, they're a skinwalker, they practice witchcraft. And then seeing them out in the open, they're just like different. They're like, yeah, this is who I am. This is who I am. I have a family now, and I'm like this. And I was like, holy cow. That was scary. Just like, man, this guy could do something to my car, or this guy could do something to me right now. But, he's went on to go live a good life, I hope. I have not seen him around in so many years. It's been so long since I seen him, and Yep, those are my 2 encounters with a skinwalker. The first one I didn't know was a skinwalker until I was talking about it. People were telling me about it. And my second one was the face to face with somebody here in a detention center. So I thought I'd share that story with you guys. Since it's Halloween, I got the red light going right here. I tried to get the shadow in the back. And I figured this story was too long to text to those guys that spoke scary stories the night before. And I just thought I'd share it with you guys. And I hope you guys have a good Halloween. Enjoy your candy. Be safe out there. And thank you for watching. We'll see you guys. Bye.